How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the final part of the top 25 defenders in the NBA series. We're going for the top five, and I added a little crude PowerPoint. Shout out to the guy who said that I just do video podcasts, because that's exactly what I do. That was the goal. So thank you. Anyways, let's get into this top five, man. Before we start, wanted to quickly wrap up the 25 through 6. All of the videos, the parts 1, 2, 3, 4 are in the description. But here is the 6 through 25, just an incredibly stacked list. And I wanted to throw in some honorable mentions that I think deserve the shout. The most notable ones who were the closest to making this list were Eason, J-Dub, KCP, Dort, Dyson Daniels, maybe even Nikhil, Porzingis, probably just injuries and stuff as well. Keon Ellis, I think, is a rising, ascending defender. Peyton Watson as well. But I don't want to dilly-dally with this. Let's get into the actual top five, because I know people have speculated or guessed which five players are they going to be, but let's figure out the order. And the fifth best defender in the league, as always, sub, like, comment if you enjoyed this. I appreciate all the support so much. It's Evan Mobley, and included some stats here. Just going to quickly explain these. Defensive estimated plus minus is just the best all-in-one metric to try to adjust for things like luck and teammates and stuff. Block and steal rate, I like the rate stats because they adjust for minutes and possessions, which doesn't really matter because all these top guys are playing it all the time. Defensive rating swing is how does the defensive rating of a player's team change when on the floor. So with Evan Mobley on the floor, the Cavs defensive rating improves by 0.3 points. Minus is good. We have opponent defensive field goal percentage within 6 feet, and then opponent rim efficiency. So Mobley absolutely kills all of these numbers, as you'd probably expect. He is one of the true best rim defenders in the league, and what he did as a primary center defender in the playoffs was remarkable. In the Celtics series that they obviously lost, but he covers so much ground and is one of the best help defenders in the league. Garland has no shot guarding Tatum, so Mobley swoops, hangs in the air, contorts his body to track down this reverse and blocks Tatum, who ends up getting the rebound, unfortunately. Some might remember, or hopefully you remember, this game-winning block that Mobley had in the playoffs against Franz Wagner. Just a wonderful representative play of Mobley's greatness. Playing drop basically at the level of the screen right now. Not many bigs are good at that. Slides down, perfectly times up that shot, blocks Franz at the apex, and wins this playoff game for the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's the kind of game-changing, game-winning defender that is worthy of being in the top five of this list and is really one of the best shot blockers in the league, full stop. He's one of the best players in the league at blocking shots at their apex, partly because he's so quick off the ground. Look at this hop to load up, and this is crazy that Mobley hasn't even left the ground yet, and Franz released the ball in this floater. This is a easy layup for 99% of situations, but not against Mobley. You could say, yeah, maybe this is a goaltend, but if we go frame by frame here, you will kind of see that the ball is going up, going up, going up, going up, going up, going up, still going up, and then Mobley gets to it. So it's arguable, but the fact that Mobley can rise so quickly and high point these balls just accentuates his rim protection stuff. Here he is peeling off of Franz, hanging in the air and blocking Paolo, and even though Paolo is much stronger than Mobley, because he's so balanced and has such great body control, Mobley can hang in the air, wait for Paolo to shoot, and come down and basically block that shot with his elbow, which is kind of hilarious there. Sometimes Mobley doesn't need to use his entire hand to block that shot. And of course, he can swoop in from the weak side and just reject shots with both hands in a truly nasty and mean-spirited way. Mobley definitely needs work still with his strength and some of the on-ball defense. He is only 23 years old, right? He's actually not the youngest player in this top five, which is pretty remarkable, as I'm sure you could have guessed. But Mobley still in isolation situations against really dominant strength creators like Jaylen Brown. He doesn't always have the core functional lower body strength to hang with guys and to absolutely stop them. And on a play like this where Obi Toppin can kind of get into his chest and force Mobley to commit early. This is just a great spin move by Obi, as Mobley tries to cut him off, but Obi gets into his shoulder. He just overpowers him with strength and explosion and ends up going around him and finishing. But as 7-footers go, I'd say Mobley is one of the better point of attack defenders here, guarding Tatum in the playoffs, blocking him from behind with his incredible length and reach. Later in that series, Mobley guarding Drew. This is maybe an even more impressive play than the Tatum one, because he's closing out to the corner. This is what the Celtics do to teams. They force slow players to close out to one of their many shooters, and they burn them with driving kicks. But Mobley can stop on a dime. This is a compromised position for most players. He flips his hips, and he's able to get a block or contest or whatever that ended up being on Drew regardless. So Mobley is just an incredibly versatile defensive weapon. He's not only one of the best rim protectors in the league, but he's also an incredibly versatile perimeter defender. And all of that combines to make Mobley the 5th best defender in the NBA. Now, these next 4, I think the order was so tough for me, but we're going to go with Bam Adebayo as the 4th best defender. Taking a look at the numbers, they're maybe a little bit lower than some of the others on this list, especially in terms of defending at the hoop, where 51.3% at the rim, 58% within 6 feet. He doesn't necessarily defend as many shots at the rim, but the Heat are much better, of course, with him on the floor. And Bam, I think, has a rightful reputation as one of the league's most mobile, versatile, perimeter switchy guys. And my favorite application of that mobility is honestly the way that he changes direction and closes out on the perimeter, where most bigs are cooked in this situation where they have to close out to Jaren because he's a deadly shooter, but Bam can close out hard, overrun this basically, immediately change directions, and just swat the hell out of Jaren because he has this all-time combination of foot speed and strength. And other perimeter-oriented bigs just get their lunch taken by Bam all the time. Even as a rookie, Chet gave so many great NBA bigs hell attacking off the perimeter, but Bam is so quick, he moves his feet so fast, he's so strong, he's so long, that bigs like Chet really have very little chance. And this perimeter movement doesn't only apply to bigs. Bam can switch out onto wings and some guards here. Look at him changing directions here against Najee Marshall. Of course, he doesn't have to close out so hard because Najee isn't a crazy three-point threat. But very few bigs have the mobility to recover from this position and easily block a shot like that. His versatility covering the perimeter is what the Heat construct their defense around. And for good reason, right? He just totally bullies defenders out there, like so strong. One of the most physical defenders in the league, which I think is a really important thing, is even bigger, stronger, not really stronger, but bigger, taller players struggle with Bam. And when it comes to defending pick and rolls at the level of the screen, right, there are few, if any, better players. I think I'd probably say Bam is number 1 at the moment, just because of not only his speed and mobility, but his incredibly quick hands and reflexes, like traps Bogdanovic. He tries to pass over the top, but Bam reads Bogdanovic's intentions and just easily deflects that pass. Now, Bam falls a little lower than some might want on this list because of some of the pure rim protection limitations. He is, 6'9", right? Has obviously an incredible standing reach and wingspan and stuff for his height, but there are still moments where players can shoot over Bam or go through him. It's just an inherent limitation with his body type, and I've been consistent throughout this series in my valuing of primary rim protection, and I didn't want to be unfair and change my criteria at the last minute to boost Bam up. But like I said, I think these top 4, I could hear a good argument for any order of them. And Bam just, I don't think, is the level of rim protector of the other 4 guys on this list, where sometimes he can be a tiny bit late reacting, and when he is, he just doesn't always have the recovery tools to make offenses pay, because he's just not as big or as tall or as imposing physically in that way as some of these other players. But that's not to say he's not an elite rim protector. He might not be one of the best, in the league, very all-time guys, but he is still elite. And that ability to backpedal and explode out of a backpedal and block shots with his length is really special. Like I said, when it comes to pick and roll defense, Bam is truly one of, if not the best I've ever seen guard in the pick and roll. His ability to play all positions, and when you have a guy who can sprint and close out and block shots like this, it's pretty scary, right? Bam guarding as a deep low man here. knows Laurie has a switch, so he's playing basically atop the restricted area, sprints out to John Collins, blocks the shot. Bam's ground coverage and mobility, which I've kind of touted as the new, like, most important defensive traits, are part of what makes him one of the most uniquely special defensive bigs that I've ever watched. And for my money, that's good for the fourth best defender in the NBA. That's very, very good. All of these guys are obviously phenomenal. Bam is just truly an incredible basketball player. But let's get to number 3, who's Anthony Davis, who's been one of the best defenders in the league throughout his career. Somehow doesn't have a Defensive Player of the Year award, which is, partly responsible to one of the other players in this list, but numbers are excellent, incredible block numbers, great estimated plus minus. Defense players do not shoot well when he's on the floor. And Anthony Davis is just one of these versatile, like, weakness-less defenders who maybe isn't as locked in all the time as some of these other guys, but double overtime, up 1 against the Warriors. You have Anthony Davis, your 7-foot center, high dropping against Steph Curry, sticking with him on the step back and getting a contest. I don't know how many bigs in the history of the sport have the ability to do what AD does on that play and also defend the rim like AD can as well. Davis is so smart, as well as being one of the all-time physical talents at his position, right? D'Lo kind of gets beat here, but AD is reading Keontae's intention to pass to Kessler. He doesn't jump or overextend, and he's able to easily alter this Walker-Kessler shot. He's a dominant force at the rim. He's a dominant pick-and-roll defender, as Anthony Davis has the mobility and fluid steps to track back here and break up this lob. There really isn't anything Anthony Davis cannot do on the defensive end, and when he is at his best, I think it's easy to argue that there's not a better defender in the league than he is. Once again, Davis playing near the level of the screen, guarding the pick and roll, and is able to recover to Kobe White and block his shot. AD isn't, a Bam or maybe even Mobley level straight ISO defender, right? Like, quicker guards can't open him up and get a step, but because of because of AD's incredible closing speed, length, timing, explosion off of the ground, he can make up for those in ways that most bigs without top S-tier foot speed can. AD's brilliance in terms of feel and reading the game is always a joy to watch. He's guarding Chet here, and Chet notices, right, that Taurean Prince steps up and leaves Giddey wide open in the paint. Against most defenders, this is probably an easy layup right here, or at least an easy layup pass. But Anthony Davis is processing the game so fast. He has this mini map that I've been talking about in his head of where everyone is. He knows that there's an open man behind him because Taurean Prince stepped up. So he slides back, snatches that ball like a corner, getting an interception. It's beautiful defensive basketball, and TP ends up converting that on the other end. And, it's really hard to nitpick weaknesses of these guys. Anthony Davis is going to get beat sometimes by the best players in the world. Giannis is able to turn him, open his shoulder, and bump him. But this is kind of what I say about on-ball defense not being as valuable to me, because these best guys in the world, at some points, there really is just nobody who can guard them, even Anthony Davis levels. And his focus and attentiveness isn't, I'd say, as high as some of the other guys on this list on a play-to-play basis. Like, early offense here, not in a good stance, lets Sabonis get a step, and Domas is pretty easily able to move Anthony Davis backwards. And yeah, he's going to struggle against Jokic. I mean, who isn't going to struggle against Jokic? But even then, AD, I think, is one of the better post defenders in the league. Against a really strong, skilled post scorer like Valanciunas, he can wall him off, and Jonas loves to drop step guys out of the way and bump them, but he can't bump AD because of that strength, and Davis is able to block this shot, or I can't tell if it's a block or contest. I think it was counted as a block. Anyways, AD is a really, really special defender. The versatility is truly absurd, right? Going from guarding pick and rolls as a high drop defender to guarding in the post to playing as a primary rim defender to guarding Steph Curry up in the pick and roll. There really is very little AD can't do. And as I've said, when he's at his best, there really aren't so many defenders in the league who can match what Anthony Davis does. So all of that is good to make Anthony Davis the third best defender in the National Basketball Association. What a phenomenal player he is. Now, let's get to number 2. And this top 2 was so hard for me to parse out. But at number 2, I went with the Defensive Player of the Year from last year. And a deserving Defensive Player of the Year, that's Rudy Gobert. And the numbers obviously reflected incredible block metrics. Just the most impregnable defensive force at the rim, where this is within 6 feet, this is at the rim, so just kind of paint versus restricted area. Regardless, Gobert is a wall either way, and Gobert has one of the strangest defensive reputations, as you know, Shaq is like he's a bum or whatever, when Gobert in reality over the last year or two has been one of the best perimeter versatile defending 7-footers in the league. I very vividly remember this play where he poked the ball away from Kevin Durant, and it's crazy how much his reputation can be skewed by like one play where he got cooked by Luka, which is, you know, it's Luka. He's going to get cooked by Luka. But then you have plays like this where Gobert is able to disrupt Kawhi's, you know, rhythm and cadence in a way that most perimeter defenders, you know, play full time on the perimeter cannot do, where look at Gobert moving his feet, changing directions here. He's not letting Kawhi set into his, you know, preferred elbow jumper, hands up, not biting. And again, ends up getting a great contest here. Gobert has been a ridiculous switch defender for quite some time for as 7-footers go. Here he is playing against Garland in space, and again, similar to the Kawhi play, forces a pass out, going to isolate on the perimeter against a very quick guard, and there's no dice there. Look at Gobert moving his feet, effectively forcing that turnover. Every single 7-footer in the history of basketball is somewhat exploitable as an on-ball defender. It's just part of how human physics works. But Gobert is as good as they get, moving feet, being nimble, changing directions, and it is really funny that he has this rotation of being a guy who gets picked on a lot. And you know, sometimes when you're playing against in a defensive context as absurd as Minnesota's, your only option is to go at Gobert with tough shot makers like Kyrie, and that's going to work sometimes because Kyrie is Kyrie, but this is as good as it gets for centers defending Kyrie Irving, flipping his hips. This is just like a really, this is a fantastic contest, and sometimes Kyrie's going to make that shot. It doesn't matter if it's Gobert or Anthony Edwards or Nikhil or Jaden McDaniels. That shot goes in on anybody. Gobert certainly is not a perfect perimeter defender by any means. I think he especially struggles against these sharp change of directions. I remember this game, Chet getting him a couple times with these hard pound dribbles. Is when Gobert does open up and turn and chase rather than trying to slide, he can get beat. Beautiful little pound dribble into a jumper for Chet there. And obviously Chet is just phenomenal. And when Gobert can't get his body into people, Şengün is one of the best centers in the league when it comes to just winning quickly and getting leverage. Players like Şengün can get Gobert, right? Like I said, he tries to turn and chase instead of sliding his feet, can't recover. Şengün puts his shoulder into his chest and ends up dunking, even though Gobert doesn't give the most perfect effort there. But obviously Gobert was a one-man wrecking show as a rim, as, pick and roll defender last season. This is a great representation of what made Gobert so special last year. Guards Harrison Barnes or picks him up in the pick and roll, forces him to pass, he's all over him, immediately helps out Cat against Sabonis and blocks him from behind. Just did absolutely everything for this juggernaut Wolves defense, and is one of the best floater shot blockers in the league. Obviously 7'2" with the crazy wingspan, standing reach, can get off the floor so fast. And look at Gobert initially disrupting Pat Bev, forcing a pickup, back out to Bobby Portis, and just swats his floater at the apex. Gobert was the best paint protector in the league last year, with ridiculous versatility and switchability all in one package. I love this play where he blocks 2 shots against my beloved Pacers. But we see all of this special on display here. We have Gobert communicating and directing traffic early in this possession. Siakam tries to euro off, makes a play. As look at Gobert guarding Siakam here after Anderson gets beat, immediately hops over to block this Turner shot, and then is in position to block the shot again after the offensive rebound. There is nothing more valuable than elite rim protection in terms of defenders. That's why all the best defenders in the history of the sport are centers. And Gobert is, full stop, one of the best defenders in the history of basketball. His defensive player of the year, his numbers, everything backs that up, right? And, narratives are going to be what they're going to be in terms of, oh, he gets picked on, oh, he can't guard the perimeter. But anyone who truly sits down, watches the tape, Wolves fans, I'm sure, will tell you that is just not the case. And it's crazy how Gobert finally gets a great defensive team around him. He was covering for some absolute dog shit in those Utah days and ends up being a dominant, impactful perimeter defender. And I really wanted to just have Gobert number 1 on this list just cause, but I decided to maybe jump the gun a little bit because this list is projecting for next season and going forward, right? If this was just about last season, Gobert would be a comfortable number 1, but yeah, I really couldn't bring myself to give this number 1 spot to anyone other than Victor Wembanyama, the Rookie of the Year. I think second place voting Defensive Player of the Year, and of course, absurd defensive numbers, incredible block numbers, all-in-one metrics, efficiency at the rim. This minus 5.2 defensive rating swing, once again meaning the Spurs were 5 points better per 100 possession with Wemby on, was the third highest of any starting center last year behind Gafford and Brook Lopez. And Wemby, funny enough, is easily the most mistake-prone defender of the group. He's a 20-year-old rookie. He jumps at a lot of stuff, which is understandable. He can be a little slow reacting at times as quick guards like Maxey can open his hips, especially when Wemby's not in a stance. You can see his feet are kind of jumbled and close together, and he's not able to recover and get that block. And as I was saying before, Wemby is an extremely jumpy player at the moment. Like, no reason you should ever be jumping at a Domantas Sabonis pump fake on the three-point line, and Wemby ends up getting burned for that. But despite all of the mistakes he made last year on the defensive end, to me, he has easily the highest high points of any defender in the league already. And projecting him to grow and improve, it was easy for me to have him at the number 1 spot. We've never seen a guy with his size and mobility before. And even then, remember this play where he blocked Giannis in the fourth quarter to save this Bucks game? I don't actually remember the outcome of this game. I remember watching this live, but I don't remember what happened. Wemby, of course, has plenty of room to grow in terms of strength, but as all of these elite skinny rim protectors are, Chet, Jaren, Mobley, we've talked about in this video, Wemby is so good at taking contact on his own terms. He lets Giannis bump him, but bump him in a way where he can still maintain balance, rise up, and just destroy that shot in a way you rarely see people do to Giannis Antetokounmpo. Here he is guarding Jokic and is able to use his quick hands to ends up getting a steal. Yeah, Wemby can be a little reach happy and he can be a little out of position, but when you have the level of dexterity, coordination, length, fluidity that Victor Wembanyama has, it's understandable that he makes some of the mistakes that he does. And he is going to get better at this stuff as he gets older and gets more experience. That's pretty much just like how it works. And Wemby is one of the better pick and roll defenders in the league already, I'd say. Dropping back against Halliburton, and they're maybe like in the history of basketball, at least that I've seen, never a 2v1 like quote unquote disadvantaged defender. Wemby is in disadvantage here. He's guarding two players at once, but look at him put his hand up to kind of deter this pass, still able to block Halliburton's shot because of his incredible length and quickness off of the floor. I really do think Wemby is so dominant in part because offensive players just aren't used to seeing players who look like him and who move like him. Again, we see Wemby getting beat though here. Like, he can be reactive to like in and out dribbles. He just doesn't need to be biting on these kind of moves that he does, right? Naz Reid, little up fake and just isn't able to recover in time. And there's going to be some of this with a 7'4" guy, right? Where quicker players are going to be able to get him. And that's just how life is as a 7'4" human being, but all of that is so easily made up for by all of the incredible positives. I'd say he was much better as a post defender than I think some people would have expected him to be, as Şengün is one of the masters of tricking bigs with his fakes and timing and touch, but it doesn't really matter when you're 7'4" with an 8 foot standing reach and 8 foot wingspan, whatever 9+ standing reach, and could just swat away shots like a mosquito or something that's just a little bit bothersome rather than another professional basketball player. And once again, the 2v1 pick and roll defense is so incredibly special, as this is a compromised position for most defenders, right? Wemby is stabbing at Caruso, which Caruso correctly recognizes and as an opening to pocket pass to Vooch, but because Wemby is an alien, he can easily track back, swat that ball away, and create a turnover for his team. And this play is a nice example of like Wemby just doing everything, even though he has some real defensive faults. The amount of ground the Spurs ask him to cover, and this Spurs team, in terms of defensive talent, outside of Wemby, was just atrocious. Like, Sohan's a pretty good defender. Vassell has his moments. Outside of that, it's grim. So Wemby had to cover so much ground, and we see him kind of jump erroneously here. Doesn't get beat, but he covers LeBron to the baseline, ends up blocking his fadeaway. Wemby did everything for this Spurs defense, and when Wemby was on the floor, the Spurs had a top 15 defense in the league, which is remarkable given their talent. I think overall they were about 21st, and without Wemby on the floor, they were at the bottom of the league predictably. So I don't really buy Wemby played on a bad team, he can't be the best defender in the league, because with horrible defensive talent, he raised his defense to a pretty good level, honestly, for a rookie. And again, we see him immediately flipping his hips here to break up this lob. Wemby's mobility and hip fluidity are two of his truly unique special traits, and he's an incredible dig one pass away defender too. As I don't know how many guys in the league at his size can not only defend pick and rolls, defend the perimeter, but dig on ball handlers and pretty much do whatever he wants because of that incredible length. And he's so well coordinated and has great timing, and is just impossible to shoot and basically move over, ends up turning the ball over there. Victor Wembanyama is one of one, and maybe you can say I'm jumping the gun on this. If you want to make that argument, fine, you can make that argument. But I feel very confident with Victor Wembanyama as the best defender in the league heading into next year and going forward. I thought he would have been a deserving defensive player of the year last year, even if Gobert was overall better, as I detailed. But some of the high points Wemby reaches in terms of rim protection, ground coverage, mobility, pick and roll defense, even switching onto the perimeter, nobody in the league can match what he does. And as he ages and as the Spurs gain more defensive talent, I would expect their team success on that end to reflect more of Wemby's greatness. So that's the series, the top 25 defenders in the league. Just to recap with our 1 through 5, we have Victor Wembanyama as the best defender in the league, Rudy Gobert at 2, AD at 3, Bam at 4, and Evan Mobley at 5, with the rest of the list right here. Thank you all so much for the support on this series. It has been so overwhelming. One of my most successful series is on this channel in terms of views and likes and comments. All that's possible because of everyone watching this video. You are all the best, and I hope you have a great day.